Hi everyone, it's Ian from QTips. Okay, so this tutorial is very similar to one I've done in the past, and it is going to be capturing or extracting the XY coordinates and then converting them into degrees, minutes, seconds. So from decimal degrees to degrees, minutes, seconds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description to the actual text of this tutorial. So you don't have to follow this video. You can also go online, just follow that link and then go through the tutorial as you might a normal document. Okay, so there's that option. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a session of QGIS and we're going to create a point file and then capture the XY coordinates and then convert them. So we'll start off by creating a new shapefile layer. And to create a new shapefile layer, we're going to go to the layer menu, go to create layer and new shapefile layer. Okay, and then this dialog will pop up and we'll start off by saving it in a place on your desktop. So any folder on your desktop, just navigate to some folder you've created maybe. And in my case, I've got something on the desktop which I will navigate to. So click on the browse button and we'll go to my desktop. Actually, there it is there. And in the vector folder, I'm going to create a shapefile called cities. Okay, so it's in my vector folder, cities, save. And the first thing we're going to leave the file encoding as the default, which is UTF -8. The geometry type is going to be point. So we'll just select point from geometry type. And then I think the default coordinate reference system is going to be EPSG 4326. And that is fine. So if yours is defaulting to EPSG 4326, just accept that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to define some fields. And the first field we'll create is going to be the names of the cities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture 4 different cities from around the world, then extract the coordinates for those, and then convert those into degrees, minutes, seconds. So this first field is going to be, or column, first field or column will be city. And it's going to be a text string. And we can have 25 characters reserved for that field. And then you need to click on add fields, add to fields list. Then we want to capture the X and Y values. So X will be our next field. It's going to be a decimal double. And then the default length of 20 and precision of 6 is fine. So we can say add to fields list. We'll do the same for Y, add to fields list. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then extract X and Y values in decimal degrees, minutes, seconds into a final field, and we'll just call it coordinates. And that will also be a text field, and the length can be 75. Click add to fields list, and then click OK. And a new layer will be added to your layers panel, which you can see over here. Now, obviously, we can't see any features yet because nothing has been captured. It is a layer without any features in it. But we do want to capture the location of a few cities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a plugin as a background, well, to add a background tile or raster image with a map of the world. And we're going to use the Quick Map Services plugin to do that. So to access the Quick Map Services plugin, we first need to activate that plugin. Right, so go to your plugins menu, click on manage and install plugins, and then what you can see, I think Quick Map Services, you can see it down here, but it's unchecked. It might be, I think it is actually a core plugin that gets packaged with QGIS. So I don't think you have to search for it, but if you do not see Quick Map Services down here, just go to all and just type in quick. And then you'll see it should pop up. Now this is provided you have a connection to the internet, because if it isn't a core plugin, it will need to access it via the online repository. Anyway, there mine is, so I need to select it. Okay, you may need to install yours, but I'm just selecting it, which is activating it, and then I can close that plugins manager, and I should now have the option to add Quick Map Services. So under a web menu, you'll see there's a quick map services option, and then there should be a bunch of services provided. Now these are background images that will get streamed in, and we can use Google Maps as one of our images. But before we do that, you may notice, if you haven't done this before, if this is the first time you are accessing quick map services, that you don't have as many services as I do, but we can access more services through the settings. So come down to settings, click on settings, and on the furthest tab to the right, which says more services, just click on the option get contribution pack, and it will go online and upload a contribution pack and install it. Then say OK and save. Now when you go there, it should look similar to this. Okay, so if you didn't have that many services before, go to settings, run the contribution pack, and now you should have access to more settings. So let's see what these look like. I'm going to turn on the Google Road map, and I can't see anything at the moment. So what I'll do is I'm just going to zoom to the full extent. So I'm going to right click and then just say zoom to layer. Where is it? Zoom to layer. Okay, there we go. So now we've zoomed to the full extent. Right, so we're going to use this background base map to capture cities for our features and then convert those into degrees, minutes, seconds. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to customize our cities layer properties to make the appearance and labeling match our preferences. So I want to change the icon for cities, and I want it to label. And then also I wanted to capture the X and Y values automatically when they get added. Okay, so let's go about that. So it's a fairly straightforward process. We're just going to right click on cities in the layers panel and then go to properties. And we'll start off with Symbology. So click on the Symbology tab. Now if your Symbology tab doesn't look like this, it could for instance look like that. You might just need to expand this section unless you're happy with the icons. Otherwise, just click on it. Okay, so we're going to click on Symbology, and I'm not going to fiddle around with the different colors. I'm just going to choose one of the default icons, and I'm going to choose diamond red as my default icon. And then I also want to change the labels. I want to automatically label on cities. So select the labels tab, and where it says no labels, this drop down option, go and choose single labels. And I see the value defaults to city, which is perfect. But if you want to label on another column or field, you can choose that here. But we're going to choose city because that's what we want. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a text buffer. So what will happen is your text will be in the label, but a buffer will just put a little halo around it so that it stands out compared to the background. So I think the Google Imagery Quick Map Services labeling is very similar to what this looks like. So I'm just going to change the color of ours buffer to yellow so that it stands out. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's the symbology and labeling. The next thing we'll do is we're going to change the attributes form. So select attributes form. And what we want to do is I want the default value or X to be $X. And what that'll do when we add a new point is it will automatically add the coordinate of that point. I also wanted to apply the default value on the update. And I want the exact same thing to happen for Y. So you select your Y column and your default value will be $Y. Apply default value on update. And then apply. Okay, that's perfect. That should work now. Okay, then click apply and OK. And we can now go about capturing new features. So let's start off by capturing New York. So I want to zoom into New York. So now you can use your hand tool to pan around, and you can also use your mouse wheel to scroll. So I position my mouse or my cursor, my hand over New York, and then if I just scroll in using my mouse wheel, that will then zoom me in. Okay, so now we're going to capture a center or a feature point for New York. So what we need to do is we need to start an editing session, and we have an editing toolbar up here. If you don't see this, you need to activate it, and that's easy enough. Just right click anywhere on a blank piece of your header up here, and then scroll down to toolbars and select the one that says Digitizing toolbar. But I think by default it should be there. So we want to start editing. So what we'll do is that there's you can click on this pencil, this toggle editing button. You can right click on your layer you want to edit and say toggle editing, or you can use the layer menu. So let's use the layer menu. So there's 3 different options. So we go layer, and under layer there's toggle editing. But all 3 of those options will give you the same result. Okay, so now that we're in an editing session, you'll see that there's a little pencil over our icon for our layer, and then also a couple of the buttons on our toolbar have now become colored up. Excuse me, which means that they are now active to us. Okay, so we'll capture a new point. So hover over and select the add point feature, and then click somewhere where the center of New York might be. So let's click there, and then what we'll get is we'll get this little dialog, and we're going to use this ID field as a unique value. So we'll start off with 1 as our first value, and then the city, New York, and then you will see the X and Y values. Because we set up those defaults for X and Y, $X, $Y, they've been captured already, and that is all we need to capture. We are going to use this coordinate field at a later stage to get degrees, minutes, seconds. So we can click OK, and you'll see it gets labeled with a yellow buffer and then the icon that we chose. So let's go and capture 3 more cities, and let's go to, let's go to Berlin, let's say. Okay, so now this is the second feature, Berlin. This is all automatic. Okay, there's Berlin. Where else shall we go? Let's go to Mumbai. So I'm just using my mouse wheel to scroll in. And this is our third feature, Mumbai. And then the last one, let's get something in the southern hemisphere. Let's come down here to Cape Town. Okay, there we go. So we have now captured 4 features. Just pan so that we can see them all. And we can save those edits. So to stop editing and save those edits, just click on your little toggle editing button on your toolbar, and then select save as your option, and you'll see the little pencil disappears. So we are now no longer in an editing session. Let's have a look at that attribute table for these new features. So right click on the cities layer in the layers panel and select open attribute table, and this is what you get. We've got 4 records for each of the features, and then values that we entered, and then also the default values as captured by our default settings. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is we are going to populate or extract the coordinates for the coordinate field, but we want to convert them or format them to degrees, minutes, seconds. And we will use the attribute table field calculator to do this. So click on this little button that looks like an abacus, or the one that says open field calculator, and you'll get this dialog. Okay, so we want to update an existing field that we've already created. So that is the coordinate field. So click on update existing field. Now we just need to choose that field, which is coordinate. And now we need to add an expression that will help us populate or extract the values for each of the records, or each of the values in that column. Okay, and that is not necessarily, it's a simple process, but the code that we are going to use is quite detailed. So what you can do is I'm going to post this code into the description of this video, so you can just copy and paste it. So I'm going to copy and paste it across and paste it into the expression window, and that's what it looks like. Okay, so I'll explain to you what this is doing. but essentially if you have an issue with your code, then the preview won't preview properly. So for instance, if I remove this bracket, you'll see that the expression is invalid. And if I close that bracket off, you get a prediction of what that text might look like. And this is exactly what I want to see. I want to see degrees, minutes, and seconds, or decimal seconds, with the hemisphere that it's in, as well as, well, the direction, or the compass bearing, east, north, east and north. Okay, so let's have a look at this text, and I'll just explain to you briefly what it does. We won't go into too much detail, but just to give you an idea of what it does. All right, so we are essentially using this code to extract the different portions from each of the points. So we are not, you could actually use it to extract or convert data from an existing field, but in this example, we're going to go and calculate a new value. So something to note is that if you edit your text, then this is going to be different. We'll have to run this calculation again. So if you move the feature, it's not going to update automatically. We will need to run this again. So what's happening here? Okay, so we've got the absolute value taken here of $y, which rounds it down to the nearest whole degree, and then this little bit of text adds some text, so it adds the degree bit of text. Okay, and then we take the absolute value of the latitude and subtract the rounded down value of the attitude of that value to get the decimal part, and then we multiply it by 60, which gets the minutes. Okay, and then we repeat those steps for the seconds, and then ultimately comes out decimal degrees, or degrees, minutes, seconds. Okay, so that's what happens. Okay, so if we click OK, that should populate each of our values, and it has done so, which is perfect. Okay, now we could double check this actually. If you look at your values as they are here, and then we scroll our mouse or our cursor over our project map view, you'll see that there's a section here for coordinate. Now it's just decimal degrees. But what we can do is we can change that reading in the project properties. So let's do that and see if we can hover over Mumbai, for instance, and get as close as possible to that, just to double check that it actually worked. So first of all, let's hover over Mumbai. Let's actually zoom in there. Okay, so we're over our point. You'll see it's 190458. Okay, very close to our value here. So I'm looking at this value, and then 72. 72. Okay, so we know that those two values are correct. Now let's go to properties of our project properties. So we go to project. I'll show you that again. Go to project properties, and then if we go to, where is it? The coordinate bearing and display, you'll see the coordinate format. Select customize, change it to degrees, minutes, seconds, and do we need to see show leading zeros? Yeah, we can do that. And then we'll say OK and OK. Now when we hover, you'll see that it's slightly different. So let's open up, just stop editing. I'm just going to stop editing that feature. Now let's go to Mumbai, just to make sure that equation was correct. So if we hover over Mumbai, we got 19,235. Okay, so it's close. And then 72, 51, 52, 54. Okay, so that expression worked. And so what we've done now is we went the long way around. We used code to extract degrees, minutes, seconds. All right, so that's one way to do it, using code, but that's not the only way. We can actually use a plugin to also extract those values. So let's just zoom to the full extent of our features. And what we're going to do now is we're going to access a plugin called Lat Lon Tools. Lat Long, as in latitude, longitude tools. So once again, we're going to go to the plugins menu, manage and install plugins. And let's type in, instead of Quick Map Services, is it Lat Lon? I think it's Lat space Lon, there we go. Lat space Lon, and then turn that one on, or check it on, or install it, whichever you need to do, and then close. So now we'll get, you'll immediately see that there's a new toolbar which has been added to our project. And there is also, under the plugins, there's a menu with various options under Lat Lon Tools. Okay, so we will use those now. So what we'll do is we're going to go to plugins, Lat Lon Tools, and select conversions, point layer to fields. Okay, and that'll open up this dialog. Now you need to choose your input vector. Now there's only one in this project, which is cities, and coordinates, I want them to be in one field. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll change. So what it's going to do is it's going to concatenate the results into one field, and it'll use the first field name here. So we'll just call that Lat Lon. Okay, this one we can ignore now. And if we scroll down, we can change the delimiter as well. So we want the values to come through as degrees, minutes, seconds, so at the bottom here. So we're going to have a comma between the two values. So that's our delimiter. But we want to change our values to actually be degrees, minutes, seconds, like that. And I think that is it. So what it's going to do, you'll see at the bottom here, output layer is going to be a temporary layer. So let's just run that. So what it's, instead of creating new fields within your existing layer, it's going to create a new field, a new feature layer, sorry, a new layer. So click run, and then close. And then there's our output layer, and it's a temporary layer. You can see with this little memory chip icon here. If we right click on that and open up the attributes table, you'll see that it has a new field called Lat Lon, and it looks almost exactly the same, rounded up slightly. Okay, so we might be able to change those settings if you feel necessary. If you feel that's necessary. Okay, so that's two ways to do it. So we used, created a new feature, point layer, captured those points, extracted the XY values. Then we also used the code to extract the decimal degrees, minutes, seconds, and then we used a plugin to run the same thing. Now currently this is a temporary layer. If you want to make it a permanent layer, just right click on it and say make permanent. And then you'll get the option to make it permanent with this dialog. So I'm going to make a shapefile out of this. I'll put it in the same folder, and I'll just call it cities, I don't know, Lat Lon, and okay. Okay, so we can rename it if necessary, but we now have this referencing a permanent layer. And that's pretty much how you do it. So I hope that's been useful, slightly more detailed than the previous tutorial. But yeah, it's a pretty useful tool, and I hope you guys get a good use out of it. That's it for this tutorial. We'll chat again soon. Cheers.